George and Jennie Sodder had built a slice of the American dream for themselves in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George, an immigrant from Italy, had worked hard, establishing a successful trucking company, providing a comfortable life for his wife and their 10 children. They were a prominent family in their community, known for their strong work ethic and their close-knit bond. The Sodder House, a large 2-story timber-framed building, was more than just a structure. It was the heart of their world, a place where laughter echoed in the halls and dreams were nurtured under its sturdy roof. Life was good, predictable, and safe. The family was a fixture in the small town, respected and sometimes perhaps a little envied. George was known for being outspoken, a man with strong opinions, particularly about the politics of his native Italy, a subject that could stir passionate debate. Jennie was the anchor, a devoted mother who managed the chaotic but happy household with grace. Their children, ranging in age, were a common sight around town, each with their own distinct personality. There were Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty, the 5 who would soon become the center of an enduring American mystery. They were just kids looking forward to Christmas, their minds filled with thoughts of toys and holiday cheer, completely unaware of the darkness that was gathering just beyond their doorstep. It was Christmas Eve 1945, a time for peace for family. Inside the Sodder home, the festive spirit was alive and well. John was home from the military. George Jr. was home from the military. Marion, an older sister, had brought gifts. Morris, Martha, Louis, Jennie, Betty, they begged their mother Jennie to stay up later and play with their new toys. Jennie, tired from the day's preparations, agreed. She reminded them to put the cows in. She told them to close the chicken coop. Jennie and George, with 2-year-old Sylvia and their 2 oldest sons, went to bed around 10 p.m. The first sign of trouble came around midnight. The phone rang, a jarring sound in the quiet house. Jennie answered. A woman on the line Jennie didn't know was asking for a man she didn't know. Jennie could hear laughter and clinking glasses in the background. She told the caller it was the wrong number and hung up. Returning to bed, she noticed something odd. The lights were still on downstairs. The front door was unlocked. She assumed the children had forgotten. She turned off the lights. She locked the door. She went back to sleep. Around 1 a.m., a loud bang on the roof woke her. A rolling sound like something heavy had tumbled down. She drifted back to sleep. Half an hour later, the smell of smoke filled her room. She woke to find the house on fire. George's office on the ground floor was engulfed in flames. The house was burning fast. Jennie escaped. George escaped. Marion escaped. Sylvia escaped. John escaped. George Jr. escaped. The 5 children who'd stayed up late were still inside, trapped in their upstairs bedrooms. The night of celebration had turned into a nightmare. The Fayetteville Fire Department was just 2.5 miles away, but help did not arrive quickly. The fire chief, F.J. Morris, couldn't be reached by phone. Some said the town's. The central telephone operator failed to get him. Someone had to physically drive to his house to alert him. By the time the fire engine finally arrived on the scene, it was nearly 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. The Sodder family home, the place that had once been filled with so much life, was gone. It had been reduced to a smoldering pile of ash and charred timber, a gaping black hole in the landscape. The family stood by, helpless and horrified, watching the last embers of their former life die out. The assumption, of course, was a tragic one. 5 children trapped in the attic had surely perished in the fast-moving blaze. The fire chief, F.J. Morris, told the devastated parents that the fire had been hot enough to completely cremate the bodies, leaving nothing behind. The official investigation was brief. The fire was ruled to have been caused by faulty wiring, a conclusion George Sodder always disputed, as he had recently had the house rewired and inspected. On December 30th, just 5 days after the fire, death certificates were issued for all 5 children. The cause of death was listed as fire or suffocation. For the authorities, the case was closed. A terrible, heartbreaking accident. But for George and Jennie Sodder, something felt deeply wrong. How could a fire, even an intense one, leave no trace of 5 children? Jennie, who had worked in a crematorium, knew that bones often remain even after hours of intense heat. She began to experiment, burning small animal bones in a container to see if they would turn to ash. They never did. They always left something behind. And where was the smell? A fire that consumed 5 bodies should have produced a distinct, terrible odor. But the firefighters on the scene and the family themselves recalled smelling nothing but burnt wood and smoke. The absence of evidence became, for the Sodders, evidence of absence. The official story just didn't add up. He questioned the faulty wiring. The Christmas lights had remained on. A telephone repairman said the phone line had been cut high on the pole. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. As weeks turned to months, new troubling details surfaced. A bus driver claimed he saw people throwing balls of fire at the house. A local woman said she saw the Sodder children in a passing car while the house burned. These sightings fueled hope. They hired C.C. Tinsley, a private investigator. He uncovered a rumor. Fire Chief F.J. Morris allegedly told a minister he'd found the children's remains and hid them. That contradicted what he told the Sodders. Their grief became a relentless quest. George chased every lead. He printed flyers with the children's pictures. He offered a reward of $5,000. The reward grew to $10,000. In the vacuum of official answers, theories began to sprout like weeds in the scorched earth where the Sodder home once stood. The simplest explanation, the one favored by law enforcement, was that it was a tragic accident. The fire caused by faulty wiring had been exceptionally hot, incinerating the children's bodies completely. The strange occurrences, the missing ladder, and the stalled trucks were just a string of terrible coincidences. It was a neat and tidy explanation that closed the case and allowed the community to move on. But for the Sodders, it was a story full of holes. A darker theory began to take shape, rooted in abduction and a possible vendetta. George Sodder's vocal anti-Mussolini sentiments were well known. Could the Sicilian Mafia have been involved? It was a world of honor. Grudges, swift, brutal retaliation. The strange insurance salesman had warned George the house would be destroyed and the children smoked. Suddenly he seemed less like a disgruntled employee and more like a harbinger of doom. The theory suggested someone set the fire as a diversion. A brilliant, horrific piece of misdirection. While the family was distracted by the flames, the children were quietly let out of the house and spirited away into the night. Over the years, the trail of the Sodder children never went completely cold. It was kept alive by a steady stream of strange clues and tantalizing sightings, whispers on the wind that fanned the dying embers of hope. Each new lead sent the Sodders on a journey, their hearts torn between the promise of reunion and the pain of potential disappointment. A woman from St. Louis, Missouri, wrote to them, claiming that the oldest girl, Martha, was being held in a convent there. George immediately drove to St. Louis, but his request to see the girl was denied. The lead dissolved into nothing, a dead end on a long and winding road. A woman who ran a tourist court in Charleston, South Carolina, contacted the family. She had seen the children about a week after the fire. They arrived late at night in a car with Florida license plates, accompanied by 2 men and 2 women who spoke Italian. The adults were aggressive, keeping the children from interacting with anyone. The next morning the car was gone. Perhaps the most compelling and heartbreaking clue arrived more than 20 years after the fire. In 1967, Jennie Sodder went to the mailbox and found an envelope addressed only to her. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his mid to late 20s. He bore a striking resemblance to their son Louis, who would have been around that age. On the back of the photo, a cryptic message was scrawled. Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie, Lil boys, and 90,132 or 35. The handwriting was unfamiliar. The message was baffling. It was a puzzle wrapped in an enigma. As the years stretched into decades, the Sodder family's search became a permanent fixture, not just in their own lives but in the landscape of West Virginia. In 1952, frustrated with the lack of progress and the official indifference to their plight, George and Jennie took a bold step. They erected a large billboard along Route 16 near the town of Ansted, not far from the site of their former home. It featured the pictures of their 5 missing children, their young faces frozen in time, staring out at the passing traffic. Below the portraits in large, clear letters was a summary of the case and the offer of a reward for any information that would solve the mystery. That billboard became a local landmark, a solemn and public declaration of a family's undying hope. It was a testament to their refusal to give up, to let the memory of their children fade away. For travelers on that highway, It was an unavoidable reminder of the tragedy and the questions that lingered. It ensured that the story of the Sodder children was not forgotten, that it remained a part of the local consciousness. The reward money, initially $5,000, was doubled to $10,000, a significant sum for the time. It was a clear message to the world. The Sodders would pay any price, do anything to find out what happened on that terrible Christmas Eve. The billboard stood for over 35 years, a silent sentinel on the highway of hope. George Sodder maintained it meticulously, updating it as needed, ensuring the faces of his children remained visible to the world. It was his promise to them, a public vow that he would never stop searching. He and Jennie pursued every lead that came their way, no matter how flimsy or far-fetched. They traveled to different states, corresponded with people across the country, and spent thousands of dollars on investigators and advertising. Their lives became defined by this singular, all-consuming quest. The search was their purpose, their reason for enduring the unimaginable pain of not knowing. Today is September 4, 2025. Nearly 80 years have passed since that fiery Christmas night in Fayetteville. The world has changed in countless ways, but the mystery of the Sodder children endures, a cold case that has captivated and baffled generations. The direct participants in the original events are all gone. George and Jennie Sodder died without ever knowing the fate of their 5 children. It's a silence that hangs over the small town of Fayetteville, a quiet space filled with 80 years of unanswered questions. What really happened in the chaotic hours of that Christmas morning? If the children were taken, who took them? Why? Did they live long lives, perhaps having families of their own, unaware that a family in West Virginia mourned them? The legacy of the Sodder family is love, perseverance, and the agony of the unknown. Morris, Martha, Louie, Jennie, Betty, their names whispered on the West Virginia wind, a chilling ballad of loss. What happened to the Sodder children? Likely never answered. And that, perhaps, is the most tragic part of all. Decades have passed, but the story of the Sodder children still haunts many. Do you believe the truth about their disappearance was simply lost to time, or was there a motive so powerful that it's still being concealed today? What are your thoughts on this? Join the conversation in the comments below with your theories and insights. And if you want to help keep the memory of the missing Sodder children alive, please share this video with others.